Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Clarity Podcast, where you'll not only get the insight to help you transition your career, but we'll have raw, unfiltered conversations about equity and access in corporate America. I'm your host, Tristan Layfield of Career Clarity Solutions, formerly Layfield Resume Consulting, and today I had the honor of having Julia Rock on the podcast today. So, Julia Rock is a career and leadership development coach who has helped hundreds of ambitious Black and people of color professionals break through career plateaus to secure six-figure salaries and fulfilling job opportunities. She's also a certified professional resume writer and certified employment interview professional. Through her company, Rock Career Development, she now helps Black and people of color transitioning basketball players. Through her company, Rock Career Development, she now helps Black and people of color who are transitioning basketball players at the professional and collegiate level translate their existing skills into high-paying, in-demand careers. Julia has been featured in several major publications, including Fortune, Business Insider, and XONicole. So I want you all to help me welcome Julia Rock to the show. Hello, my friend.
Hey there. How are you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on, man. It's been a while since we've been able to chat.
It's been a minute, man. I mean, the living corporate link up access point days, man. We got to run it back one time, man.
Yeah. We gotta run it back. That was like in the thick of the pandemic too, when we were doing
pandemic.
that stuff. So
we was in a house. We wasn't like half in and half out. We was in the house, quarantined up.
In the house. Yes, absolutely. So I appreciate you joining me on the podcast today. And so, for those who don't know, you've been doing this work for a while. You and I have, been following each other on all the platforms, seeing what each other are doing, and all the growth we've made since then. And you've made sort of I don't want to call it a pivot, but you found sort of a lane that I think is incredibly interesting that we're going to get into today. And it's really helping athletes trying to transition from their sport into industry. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough here. So we're going to definitely dive into that because I think you got some good info to give the folks. Okay?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Okay. So, but one of the things that we know, no matter if you're an athlete trying to find a job or you just, one of us regular folk trying to find a job, we need to know what's going on in the job market. So from your perspective, what is the state of the job market right now? If you had to say the state of the job market right now is blank, what would that be?
Interesting. I would say,
okay.
I would say it's interesting. I mean, because there's so many people talking about the sky is falling because of all the layoffs in the tech space. And yes, that's not great, but it's very similar to the to COVID era, pandemic era, where you have companies that are still hiring and they still have needs, right? So the question is, so it's not, the sky isn't falling for everybody. And even in the tech space, people that I know that are connected in cybersecurity, I was having a conversation last week and they said, Julia, we need people. We need qualified cybersecurity professionals and I'm having a hard time finding them. So that's why I say it's interesting because if you're on social media, everyone's trying to tell you, listen, there ain't no jobs. You're never going to get hired. You're going to be hired. You ain't going to get a job for 6 months. And it's like, that's not really what's happening. It depends on the industry. It depends on the lane. It depends on the certifications you have, your career interests. So I definitely say it's really an interesting time right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's been interesting because I always ask every single one of my guests what the state of the job market is, and the answers have varied so much because the other thing that's been happening is the state of the job market's just been in constant flux since the pandemic started. It's been up, it's been down, it's sort of been in the middle, it's been great, it's been terrible, like it's all over the place, and so we're constantly having to shift and adjust as career development professionals, figuring out what's going on. How do we best sort of, advise our clients on how to move? Because I agree with you. It really depends on where you are in the market, the type of roles that you're looking for, the industries that you're in, on whether the job market is looking great for you or the job market's not looking too hot, right?
Exactly.
So given that sort of nuance here, right? what tips would you have for people who are trying to find a job right now in this sort of interesting market?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is, especially if you are just got laid off or something like that, this is the perfect time for you to get clear on what it is that you want to do, because this may be an unexpected
Mhm.
blessing or silver lining, right? Like you may not have really liked your job in the first place. Yes, it was a steady paycheck, but you were maybe on the fence about it. So now is the time to get some clarity. And then also in parallel, don't just get clear on that, but see if it's paying, right? Because part of the thing of like, following your interests and following your passions, that's nonsense, because you can't take passion to the bank. I'm tired of people saying it. So it's about looking at what your interests are, but then also looking at where is there an opportunity for me to get paid in that space. And something else
Mhm.
that's so critical, if they don't listen to anything else I say, use your network. Use your network. Please, oh God, use your network.
Oh
Because
my
people,
God.
they were trying to be out here on the struggle. I'm going to try to apply and I'm going to use Twitter and I'm going to use all these things, and that's fine. But you've got built-in connections, whether it's from church, your sorority or fraternity, it's from your sports team for the athletes that I talk to, wherever it may be, old co-workers, old managers. Use your network so that
Mhm.
you can try to leapfrog a little bit. And the
Yeah.
other thing I would also mention, I mean, there's a list of things I could go down, but another thing is that also upskill where you can. This is a time that if you're looking for a job and the market is competitive, you've got to be able to set yourself apart in the marketplace. So if you've got some bandwidth now to get some additional skills, maybe it's not something that's super expensive, but if you have the time to do some additional courses or something, this is the time to really set yourself apart. And then lastly, I'll just say this is the time to build a personal brand. If you don't have one, if your resume's trash or your LinkedIn's trash and all the stuff online is trash, this is the time to invest in yourself and take the time to put together a personal brand story, both written and then also for you to verbally communicate to others. So having a strong resume, having a strong website, if that's the lane that you're in, having a strong LinkedIn profile where all the messages tie together so that when people see you anywhere, that they know what you're looking for, they know what value you offer, and it's very, very clear.
Look, you must have been sitting in the class I taught earlier. I just came from teaching a class at Oakland Community College, career readiness, and maybe I hit on all of those points. So we are absolutely aligned. I talk about that all the time with the passion piece. Like, it's great if you have a passion for what you do in your everyday work, but the reality is that most of us are not going to be able to monetize our passions. That's just simply what it is. Now, we can monetize skill sets that we're really good at and don't mind doing. Doesn't mean we always have to be the most passionate at what we do at work. It just simply isn't the case all the time, right? And then the point about making sure you can get paid. Yeah. With the job market being the way it is right now, I think one of the good things that can happen right now is when we're trying to get that clarity, we can start searching and saying, well, what type of opportunities are they hiring for? Because
Exactly.
you might be barking up the wrong tree right now trying to
Facts.
find a job that they're not hiring for, right?
Facts.
So that can really help you with that clarity. And the jobs they're hiring for, they're probably more than likely going to pay for because they need those people right now. And you need to be able to negotiate when you do those things too, obviously.
Right.
And then that branding piece, man, that branding and networking piece, because I think they go hand in hand. You don't
Absolutely.
brand with to not have a network, right?
Right.
So we know that networks make you, if you get a referral from your network, you're 15 times more likely to land an interview than just applying online.
Facts.
Hello.
Help the
Why
people.
wouldn't we want to do that?
Help the people, Tristan.
Hello.
Help the
Look,
people.
I am research and statistics based. I love to pull out a number, baby. Okay, I will do it quick. So I like that is absolutely key. And then that branding piece. That's where I start all of my presentations when I'm doing these career readiness classes. Is look, you have a professional or personal brand, whether you know it or not. And you'd rather be in control of that narrative than rather having somebody else control that narrative for you. So, look, you and I are absolutely aligned in
On the
all of
same
those tips.
page. On the
Okay.
same page.
Look, Look, okay. I love it. I love it. Now, I know that much of your work now focuses on helping athletes sort of transition into industry. And so when we're looking at the population that you really are looking to serve, those athletes, do those tips look different for former collegiate or professional athletes? Or would you say those tips are very much the same or similar?
They're similar, but I think there's some additional things you can mention, especially on the clarity piece. Because for people who have worked in the professional space, it may be easier for them to kind of suss out the different types of things that they're interested in. But if you've only played sports, it may take you a little bit more time to really unearth, well, what is it that I want to what is it that I want to do? And it may be that you just end up saying, hey, I'm going to try something. So it may be, hey, spend a little bit more time on the clarity piece. And if all else fails, if you've talked to a coach, you've talked to everybody, and you still feel like, hey, I just don't know, this is a time for you to just try something, right? And so that's what I would say is one of the things that I would mention. And then also for professionals, many professionals have like super sexy built-in networks, right? For those of us who are out here rolling up the sleeves trying to just talk to people and hope that somebody talks to us, for many professional athletes, they may have people lined up and opportunities that they could maybe walk into, but it's important for them to get good at communicating their value so that if the door is open for them, if they've got a friend, an agent, or somebody who's like, listen, you could get in, but you got to sell it. And if you don't have your value together, you could still walk in there and fumble. So it's really important to, not only have the network and know who you can use, but be real clear on how you communicate your value. And also, for athletes, it's even more important for them to think about transferable skills, right? For many people who may be looking for a job right now, they may be trying to stay in the same lane or something like that. So yes, transferable skills are important, but much more so for people who are trying to leverage their skills in sports into something else. So really thinking about, well, what makes me a good employee in this environment or a good business owner? Whether it's the leadership skills, the teamwork, the competitiveness, the strategy, all those are things that you that are transferable skills, but knowing how to message that is going to be really, really essential. So the personal brand and all those things are really important, but I would tweak and add on some of these additional things for people who have, for people who've been in the sports lane, because many of the things that professionals in the corporate space have done, athletes just haven't done. And also and even just putting a resume together, right? Get the help that you need to put a resume together, because for some of us who've been in a professional space, we could limp along and get a little something done. But if you've never done one, you've got to have the right set of eyes to help you prepare your LinkedIn profile, your resume, etc.
Yeah, it takes me back to when I graduated college and I had no clue how to write a good resume or how to set up a good LinkedIn profile or how to do any of those things. Like I was struggling during those times. So I can only imagine, being in your mid-20s or close to 30 and not knowing any of those things too. It sort of feels like, oh crap, am I behind? Like, what am I supposed to be doing here, right? So I totally get it. But yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. This networking piece is important. These branding pieces are important. And I really tell everybody, like, when you are on a job search, you are a product. And when you are a product, the way you get people to buy in is through marketing. And you need to have a understanding of your target audience before you try to market anything. And so when you're talking about those professionals having those potential opportunities on the table, they need to really understand their unique value proposition, the thing that sets them apart, the thing that's going to sell them when they walk into those spaces. And it's very similar for professionals, right? Even people who are just trying to stay in the same field, if you're in a very competitive industry, you need to know what sets you apart from everybody else, right? So absolutely. I think those are some incredibly, incredibly great tips.
Now, can I sneak in one more thing?
That I think about.
Can I sneak in one more thing?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So, go ahead. And one other thing for sports professionals, don't feel like you have to run from sports, because it's possible for you to stay in the sports space and still do a lot, right? Like even if you're not on the field or on the court, there's still a lot that you can do in the front office and other things that will allow you to leverage new skills and could be a soft landing as you transition out. So, you don't have to run from something if it's still of interest to you. You don't necessarily have to go in the opposite direction just to say you broke away from your sport. There's plenty of opportunity for you to leverage those skills and transfer and be off the field or off the court.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Sort of look around where you are and see what opportunities might fit me around here, right? Um, there's lots of people who've been in sports that have gone into the front office and have done really well, who've become agents sometimes and do really well.
Yep.
There's people who were in sports and then they became an entrepreneur and innovated in those sports in some way, shape, or form because you're so intricately aware of what's going on in that space that you can innovate for
Exactly.
that space, right? So
Exactly.
I love that idea, sort of looking around you and seeing what's available to you. You don't have to run away from the sport at that point in time, which I love. I love that. Now, one of the things that's happening all around us, whether that's in sports, whether that's in industry, or whatever the case may be, is Gen Z's creeping into the corporate space, and Gen Z's creeping up into the sports space, and they're the ones that are coming up on that common age that sports people start to get on the edge of retirement because Gen Z's hitting those mid 20s,
20s,
right?
yeah.
The top of Gen Z is right. They're hitting the mid 20s. I know a lot of people in the sports realm, they tend to retire around in their 30s. So when we think about Gen Z talent, I don't know if you've worked with any athletes specifically from that generation just yet, but what do you think recruiters might need to know about attracting and retaining Gen Z talent, specifically ones who play or played sports? What do you think recruiters need to know about those people that are looking for roles?
I think there's a couple of things to pay attention to. One, it's the traditional way of recruiting or whatever will attract, think about millennials or before, those things just won't work. They have different interests, they have different things that are important to them. And so when you're trying to attract them, the messaging has to be different. Yes, the money is important, but what else? Right? What is it that you're offering them that will allow them to be balanced, that will allow them to have the life that they want to live? The biggest difference that I've seen with Gen Zers versus kind of, historical groups in terms of the workplace is that they have more an interest as to what is this workplace going to do for me? Where is the value that I can get? What's the balance for me in my life? I'm not here to just be a workhorse, right? And so that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest things is like, how are you going to position this opportunity that will sell the, hey, this is what you're getting out of it, and this is how things will work for your life. And then thinking about, especially for athletes, knowing that many of them are leveraging skills that are coming from their sport. They don't have any prior experience, but showing them that there is a place for them in that opportunity, because sometimes athletes may feel like, well, hey, can this really work for me? I don't really know, but they've got a wealth of skills that will fit for those opportunities. And if you know that your organization, because there's many organizations out there, contrary to popular belief, that want athletes because of their competitiveness and some of the skills they've learned in their sport, but you've got to position it so that athletes feel like, okay, so there is a connection here for me. There is something that
Mm-hmm.
will bring me in, and I can hit the ground running. And so it's really about finding that balance for the Gen Zers, making sure they feel like they're getting something out of it, but also, like I said, for athletes, making sure that you're positioning it in such a way that it's like, hey, there is a place for you. We do want you here, and here's what we think you can bring to the table. And like I said, I feel like in past generations is like, if you build it, they will come, right? And hey, we've got a job, we're
Mm-hmm.
paying you some money, so come on in. And I feel like we're done with that in the marketplace, I feel like.
Yeah. 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 Gen Z is not a if you build it, they will come. They're a, if you build it, they're gonna ask, well, why did you build it? What did you build it for?
How do you
What is the
Is
purpose
this a
of
fit
that?
for
How is it
me?
gonna help us?
You know what I mean? I've got
Right?
questions.
Like, right. They got questions that they need answers to. And I appreciate that because one of the things I teach all of my clients, Gen Z or not, is that the job search process is a two-way street. No matter how much companies and organizations want to sell it as a one-way street and that they have all of the power, it is a two-way street.
Facts.
You are interviewing and weeding out companies just as much as they are interviewing and weeding you out. And I think Gen Z might be the first generation to take that straight to heart and be like, okay, look, what are you going to do for me? Am I going to be able to show up as myself, or am I going to have to try and hide something to be here to do this little work for you that I don't even want to do, right? They are incredibly transparent about what they want, how they feel about that, and I think it's great. I think it's shifting the dynamics of how companies need to actually try to figure out their talent acquisition strategies and their talent retention strategies, because it's more than putting a ping pong table in the office and thinking that that's going to keep people.
Or the pizza or the ice cream parties that they keep trying to have, like that's a retention strategy. Like, listen, those are snacks. Snacks are not a retention strategy. For anybody who's listened to this, tell your HR people that snacks are not a retention strategy. Throw it in the trash.
Baby, why are we doing the same thing I was doing in first grade? Why are we having pizza parties?
Right, they're about to start whipping out pinatas on people's birthdays next. It's going to be pinatas, and we out here scrambling for the candy falling out. Like, what are we doing right now?
Look, the only time I want to see a pinata in the workplace is if it got a couple stacks in there. Okay,
facts.
Now that might retain me. So, but okay, well, you've given the people some really, really good, insightful things. I really appreciate you sharing that insight. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I like to bring in a little bit of sort of the popular culture aspect of things to this conversation. I think we talk about careers in a vacuum a lot, right?
Yeah.
But we don't always talk about them in context of, what's going on in the news about careers right now, other than the job market itself.
Right.
But one of the things that has been on my mind is sort of the retirement of a lot of our great athletes. We got Serena, who's like, hey, I'm going to step away from tennis right now. We got LeBron, who's been considering retirement, but is waiting to play with his sons in the league. But he's sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We got Tom Brady retirement, and 6 months later is coming back. Like, we got all these retirement things happening.
Yeah.
Look, oh my gosh. Let's not get started into that, because I'm going to turn into media takeout in the shade room in about 5 seconds. But one of the articles that I pulled and sent over to you was actually from a senior editor at LinkedIn News, Joseph Millard, who wrote The Next Play: How Pro Athletes Find Their Post-Retirement Careers.
Yep.
And I pulled this article, obviously, because this is sort of the lane that you exist in, but he wrote this not too long ago. And it really brought up those thoughts about athletes retiring. And one of the things that he did for me is sort of put into perspective a couple of things, right? When we talk about conversations about athletes retiring, we're usually focused on the superstars, the people I named, the Serenas, the LeBrons, the Tom Bradys, right? All the household names who hang it up way late in their careers compared to many of the other athletes, right? They'll be in their late 30s, early 40s before they're hanging up, I wanted to say cleats, but everybody ain't got cleats in sports. So, whatever it is that
jersey, something, racket, something.
It's something like that. But what about the others, right? There's tons of people who play sports who aren't household names, and many of them tend to retire in their under 30, usually right in their early 30s at the latest, right? So when we talk about these people, these are the people that you are encountering on a regular basis. So first, let me ask you, you had to step into this gap for some reason. Have athletes sort of been in this space where they haven't had too many people helping them with this type of transition, and they've just had to be sort of figuring out on their own? Or what guided you to step into this gap? Because there's clearly a reason.
Yes. So interestingly enough, I was still doing corporate coaching last year, and one of the ladies I was coaching, her brother had played in the NBA and had played overseas, and so she's like, hey, can you help my brother find a job? And I had never worked with athletes before, but he and I were able to work together, and then, and he was able to get into a job. And I thought about it, and I said, well, he can't be the only one. So I was happy for him, but then it was like, but he can't be the only one. And as I looked around, I realized there weren't a lot of people who are actually doing this work. They have some agencies, but for many of the agencies, it's primarily white people who are doing it, and so, or it's just, and there's some former athletes who are helping from a life transition. But in terms of truly career space, there weren't a lot of folks who were helping. And I thought, what about all of those athletes who don't have those endorsements, who don't have those opportunities? Where are they getting the support to transition? Because for most of the college athletes, they're not going to go on to play pro. I think it's 98 or 99% of all these athletes are not going to play pro. So they have to have a game plan after sports. And so, and after they leave school, many of them are dealing with a loss of identity, loss of kind of purpose and direction, because all they've done is play sports. And then, like I said, for those who were fortunate enough to make it to being a professional, if you don't have any sort of safety net or guidance or anything, you're just kind of blowing in the wind. And so for me, when I started to look around the industry, I'm like, there's just not enough people who look like me and who look like the athletes I want to serve who are doing this work. And that's why I got into coaching many moons ago, was to help people who look like me on the corporate side. And so now that the space has a lot more people who look like us, I'm happy about that. But I said, okay, well, now there's a time for me to go into a sector of the market that has a need still. And that's how I found this space.
I love that. I love that. You and I both sort of have similar missions. That's exactly why I started my business, was to help Black and brown professionals really throughout their careers. And so now sort of, I agree with you. We're getting a lot more Black and brown people in the career development space. So now sort of niching down to that, I think was really smart, really, really, really smart, especially because when I was looking in the article, it said something like professional sports leagues and unions have begun to take a more active role in helping players find their next career. And it says the NFL, for example, offers career development resources and training in areas like entrepreneurship, broadcasting, and public speaking. And I just found that so interesting. It's like they're starting to take a more active role in helping them. I'm like, these leagues have been here for decades upon decades. What have they been doing? These have always been incredibly finite careers for people, right? These careers end at a certain point in time. And oftentimes they can end very abruptly for a lot of people, right? So what have these spaces been doing? So I guess that definitely pointed out the need for somebody to be in this space, especially for Black and brown people, seeing as in many sports, we tend to dominate professionally in those sports. I'm going to call it. Right.
Let's be honest right now. I mean, it's a fact.
Look, unless we're talking about tennis or golf
or hockey or something,
beyond those two, or hockey, right? Beyond those three, we tend to dominate in many of those. Black and brown people tend to dominate in many of those. So I think that's a really smart thing. Now, when I was reading this article, and you mentioned it actually, it sounds like a lot of athletes have this situation where they've been spending so much time with their sport that the thought of leaving the sport hasn't even been able to be fully realized in their brain in any way, shape, or form. So they haven't been able to plan or even think about what they want to do. And so many of them have this identity crisis. Who am I outside of football? Who am I outside of basketball? Right. Who am I outside of tennis? Whatever the case may be. And so when we're thinking about that, have you had any clients that are in that space, and sort of what are some of the things you encourage them to do when they find themselves in that identity crisis space?
Yeah, so I try to take them back a little bit. So, well, first I ask them to describe themselves and see, okay, how can they describe themselves without mentioning their sport? I ask them to look at some of the qualities that they have. So not mentioning anything external to them like their sport. It's like thinking about who you are. What do you like about yourself? What are the skills that you like using? How would you describe yourself? How would your friends describe you? And then I also start to take them through, to think about, were there career opportunities that ever appealed to you? Because yes, you may have wanted to play sports, but there's some athletes that I've talked to, like, yeah, when I was a kid, I thought about being a fireman, or I thought about being a so-and-so. And it may not be that that's the career path for you, but it may be that there was something about that career path that stood out to you that we could then try to start to unearth a little bit more. I also just asked them, what do you spend your time looking at, reading, spending time with friends about, talking to your family about? What do people come and ask you questions about? Starting to really think about, where are there different threads to pull on? Because if all you've done is focus on sports, you may not have any internships, you may not have any jobs. So a lot of the traditional stuff that you could use in terms of corporate professionals may not be there. Also, if especially if I'm dealing with like collegiate level or somebody who's kind of just fresh out of college, it's thinking back to the courses that they may have done. And were there courses that stood out, things that were interesting to you? Were there projects that were interesting to you, while you're in that collegiate space? Because again, you're looking for those threads and then you can start to walk down the path a little bit. But that's really, so it's a lot of discovery and kind of digging work that you have to do.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think for them it's rewarding because that's reflection that they haven't had time to do because they're just playing, they're training, they're planning, they're trying to keep their body in shape. They don't have that time for reflection and self-evaluation and self-discovery, and so that's kind of the path that I help them through.
I love that. I love that. That's very similar to a lot of the clients that I work with when they don't know what they want to do at all. I take them down some similar pathways, and I think it's really funny because I was actually having a conversation with my best friend right before we got on this recording, and I was saying that some of the things that I'm seeing in this article that a lot of the athletes are struggling with, I'm sure to them feels like it's unique and solely to them, and there is some aspects that are unique and solely them, but there are some things that I thought that were just like really sort of universal across the board. There are a lot of people whose identities are caught up in certain things, right? You worked in this certain field for so long and got laid off, and now you just don't have any direction in life because your career has been that for you for so long, or your goal has been to go through school and get a PhD, and so you've just been so focused on education and getting through school, and now you got the PhD and you've
Right,
reached
now
this
what?
major accomplishing goal. Now what do you do, right? Like these are things that I think are incredibly common outside of sports, but sports is a very unique lens for this to be happening in because it has such a demanding time requirement that doesn't allow a lot of the exploration or the understanding of self that other spaces might have allowed during that time, right?
Exactly.
And so it's just very interesting that I just see such the relation between them and other job seekers, and it's to tell you all, if you're an athlete listening to this, it's not so much different for some of the other people that you might be knowing. Because I know one of the things they mentioned too was like, one of the athletes was talking about retiring, and they're like, and they look at their peers and their friends who've gone to school and gotten degrees, and they're an accountant and supply chain manager and marketing, and they're moving on to another chapter, and they're just sort of comparing themselves to those people. And I'm like, well, you have a very unique, different set of situations, but I can guarantee you those people are comparing themselves to somebody else too and feeling inadequate and like they aren't enough or they're not where they should be. These are all incredibly common situations. So I'm just saying, athletes out there, don't feel alone. Like literally, sometimes talk to the people who haven't been athletes. They probably can tell you they felt some of those same feelings,
Exactly.
and sometimes hearing that can just make you feel better, right?
Right, like we're all in this same boat together. We're all on this struggle, and that's why part of the reason, like I use social media for my business and to connect with folks, but I hate it sometimes because it creates this comparison situation where because everybody's life on
Mm-hmm.
social media is great, right? Like everyone's making a gazillion dollars. They're hanging out on yachts with Diddy on the weekends, right? Like it's just everybody's life is amazing, and it's like we all know it's not like that. But again, it looks like everybody loves their job, they love their spouse, they love their dog. Like it just seems like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's loving their life, and the truth is, for so many people, they're struggling. But we're in that comparison page looking at, okay, their life looks perfect, what's wrong with me? And so like I just had to get on my social media soapbox, like don't social media is smoke
Look,
and mirrors, y'all. It's smoke and mirrors.
social media has been a point of contention for me for a long time. It is absolutely useful. I understand its purpose. I know how to use it well, but there are points where I just have to take a break. It's too much for me. And I just recently came off the hills of a break because of exactly what you said. That sort of insight into the perfect pieces of people's lives, which sometimes aren't even real. Let's be honest. But
Facts.
into the perfect piece. Don't let me get dragged on the internet. But the perfect pieces of people's lives, it can make you feel some type of way,
Right.
even when you're cognizant of the fact that many people put on a facade for the internet. So athletes, if that's the case, look, you and I are together. I take a break from that stuff all
You
the
have to
time
for your
for my
mental
own
health.
sake.
For your
So
mental health.
yes.
And, and I think
Now,
that that's important also from a mental health perspective because for many athletes, mental health is something that we don't talk enough about because it's always about their physical readiness and their performance. And especially when you're in that transition space, you get hit from a mental perspective because, again, you're that sense of loss of identity and so forth. And then that comparison piece just compounds on. And so, we have to keep mental health in focus with a
Yeah.
lot of this as well.
Yeah, and athletes are always taught to push through, right? Push through the pain and push through this and the grief because you lose family members or lose this, but you got to play a game that night. And so the lessons that athletes are taught is often to just push through whatever is going on. When in reality, now at the end of their athletic career, a lot of those things are come rushing back too. The things you weren't able to deal with, and so mental health is absolutely an important factor for everybody. But I could totally see with athletes that being such a large factor into what's going on here. Now, my last piece about this, you work with athletes in this space and transitioning all the time. What are some of the common things that you see athletes transition into? What are some of the common skills you see athletes utilize to really make their transitions? There's some things that called out in the article, but I like to hear from practitioners themselves because this was just based on some LinkedIn data. But sometimes when we're on the ground, we see some different stuff. So what do you see?
Yeah, so I've seen a couple of different things. So one is, and I saw the article. Sales is truly one that actually it is very accurate because it's with sales you have the opportunity to leverage a lot of the background that you have in terms of competitiveness and persistence and drive. But and then what I also see a lot of my clients have wanted to stay in the sports space. So some of them have wanted to go into coaching. They wanted to go into player development, scouting, and that kind of thing. So not even necessarily front office, but still staying very close to the players. And then some of the ones that I work with, they also have gone into entrepreneurship. So they are looking for my advice. So sometimes they may have been thinking about, well, I want a job, and then perhaps they thought about it a little bit more and said, hey, I want to start my own thing. I want to leverage the skills that I have to start my own thing. And so those are the three kind of main ones, and as well as some folks have gone into marketing as well, because they've been able
Okay.
to they may have had a different skill set. They may have had a school background, and then just honing certain skills while on the field or on the court, that has helped as well. So sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, and then I lost the one that fourth one that I had. But there's a couple of different coaching and staying close to the sports space.
Mm.
So there's a lot of opportunity there for athletes, but those are some of the main ones I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. I've worked with a couple of athletes too. Actually, I'm about to leave here and work on a resume for one that I've been working with, and he is a former NFL player, and he's in sales, and he's killing it in sales. I mean, this man's coming back to me. I mean, killing it. The skill set is incredibly transferable, right? And sales in and of itself is just a competitive industry. And so it sort of ignites something I see in a lot of athletes because of the translation of the competitiveness there. And he is a beast. I've been working with him since I started my company in 2017. I mean, this man comes back to me about every 6 months to get his resume updated because he's getting promoted or he's getting a new job and he's getting hired. I'm like, dude, you are out here killing it. So I 100% agree. I love it. But I 100% agree. Any athletes that I've worked with have sort of been in those same buckets that you called out. And that actually is in alignment with the data that LinkedIn's economic graph showed. They said sales professional, sports coach / instructor, owner and founder. Those are the top three next plays for athletes when they transition out of their sports. So, my friend, I could talk to you about this all day. I think, those things that have a finite ending that require a transition, we don't talk about those enough. And I think you're doing some really great work. We all hear about Black and brown athletes being taken advantage of in a lot of these spaces and not having the help that they need. And so I think that you're doing a great service. So thank you for doing that. I really love this sort of slant, this way that you're going here. And I'm definitely going to keep up with what's going on because as we see more and more Black professional athletes retiring, we need a Julia Rock in there to guide them around on the right path. Okay. Okay, my friend. So I hear that you have a little piece of literature coming out that you helped co-author. So tell us a little bit about what you have coming out and when it is going to come out.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually did co-author the book, The Six Figure Athlete. And really, the book is about, with co-authors coming in to share how athletes can turn their skills into cash, especially for athletes who are leaving their sport and maybe they don't have all the endorsements or all the money coming in. So these are key strategies to help them be able to monetize their skills. So I'm really excited about this project. It actually drops on December 14th, so really excited. But the good news is you can pre-order it right now. The link is available. It's rockcareer.com/SFA book. So really excited about it. But it's really about empowering athletes to kind of get money in their own hands, so they can kind of secure their own future after they leave their sport.
I love that, man. People contributing to books. I'm here for it. I'm always trying to encourage people to read a little bit more anyway. Okay, so y'all heard it here first. The book is going to drop. She is a co-author. You can find the link in the show notes. So make sure you go and pre-order that book. You know, it's this right around the holiday time, y'all. So pre-order that book for the athlete. Okay, the athlete in your life. Go ahead and get that order for them, so that way they can get these tips, because you want them to have a nice long career after they're done with the sport. So, Julia, you out here doing the people's work, my friend.
Thank you. Doing what I can out here in these streets. I'm just trying to be like you, right? So trying to serve the people.
No, don't be like me. Don't be like me. Be like you, because look, we need a diversity. We need diversity in the people out here. Okay, we don't need no more Tristans. So, but congratulations on
Thank
co-authoring the
you.
book, my friend. I can't wait. I'm gonna order it myself. Like I said, I have a couple clients who are athletes too, so this is gonna be really useful information for me to sort of pass along to them and tell them to pick a copy up of. So check it out in the show notes and let me know what y'all think. Let's start a book club or something, okay?
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. First book, Six Figure
Yes.
Athlete.
Look, I love it. I love it. Well, okay, go ahead and check it out, y'all. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you so much for all the knowledge that you dropped today, my friend. I appreciate you coming on the pod. We will definitely have you back on again. I think I want to get a couple people on here so we can have multiple people and have a conversation on some things. So don't be surprised if I'm in your inbox asking for more of your time. Okay.
That's all right. Come on back. Come on back. I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Now tell people where they can find you on these internet streets.
Yes. So I'm pretty consistent. So from a personal side, you can follow me at the Julia Rock on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then from a business perspective, at Rock Career on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay.
So super, super easy, super consistent.
Okay, perfect. Well, you heard it here. Go follow her, go engage with her. We'll also put all of her information in the show notes. So, once again, thank you, Julia, for joining. And until next time, everybody, take care. We'll talk to you soon.